Asian markets have opened mixed on the final trading day of the week with no overnight cues from Wall Street. Japan's inflation comes in hotter than expected. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a mildly positive start for the Indian markets. Oil prices rise as market participants weigh the likelihood that talks to end the war in Ukraine will lead to an agreement, with trading volumes thin due to the Thanksgiving holiday in the US. Gold, on the other hand, slips from the highest levels in nearly 2 weeks. The second quarter GDP numbers are due later this evening. They may turn out to be as eye-popping as the first quarter numbers were. A CNBC TV18 poll sees the number at 7.4% compared to 7.8% in Q1. Economists have now raised their full-year GDP growth forecast to above 7%. GAIL will be in focus today as the regulatory body for the petroleum and natural gas sector. PNGRB has issued the long-awaited transmission tariff revision order. The new transmission tariff levy will be 65.7 rupees per million metric British thermal unit, which is lower than the 78 per MMBTU that the company had sought. And Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow is ready for serious talks following the US-backed peace proposal. This is the first time that he has publicly addressed the peace plan. It's the final trading day of the week. You're watching Power Breakfast right here on CNBC TV18 in the Mumbai News Center. I am Hormas Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off today. And, well, the absence of overnight cues from the US has meant that some bit of profit booking is setting in across most of the Asian indices. The Hang Seng is down around 0.3%. The Nikkei is down 0.25%. The Kospi, though, is the big underperformer. It's down over 1%. As we speak. The Shanghai Composite 2 trading with losses of around 0.3% as well. The Taiwanese index, the only outlier, just managing to trade above the flat line. But as of now, the Asian markets are seeing some bit of profit booking. Of course, you need to take account for the fact that volumes will be lower going into the weekend. There was some inflation data that came in from Japan, and that was the hotter than expected, paving the way for possibly more hikes from the Bank of Japan. But pull up the GIFT Nifty. That will give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off. Well, quiet is what the implied open is suggesting. May open with a positive bias, somewhere around 20 odd points higher is what the implied open is currently indicating after the record highs that we hit in yesterday's trading session, and then of course the subsequent cool off that we saw towards the later half of trade. But to set you up for today's trading session, our research team is here. They will tell you about the trade setup, the stocks that you should be watching out for, and of course the setup on the FNO side of things as well. First up, Ekta joins in to get all the market cues we need to watch out for. Ekta, good morning. Some profit booking after the record highs yesterday, but what are some of the important things you're watching out for today?
Morning. Well, yes, like you mentioned, yesterday the markets did end flat after hitting intraday record highs that we saw. So the Nifty crossed 26,300 for the first time yesterday. So that becomes the new level to watch out for on the upside. However, the FII's net sold around 1,255 odd crores after a huge buy figure which came through the day before. DII's net bought around 3,940 odd crores. So that trend continued. But the FII buy or inflow figure into the Indian markets continues to be a jagged edge. Now, in terms of the US markets, they were closed on account of Thanksgiving. So we had the European markets to go by. They closed higher. Puma, for example, was up around 18 odd % in yesterday's trading session, and Asia is largely mixed at this point in time. Well, we do have the GDP data for Q2 FY26, which will be out at 4 p.m. this evening. So estimates are that GDP is expected to be above 7 odd %. Remember, last quarter it was 7.8%. So let's see where it matches up at the end of it. IIP data at 4 p.m. this evening as well. Now, in terms of listing, we do have Sudeep Pharma, which is listing in today's trading session. Besides that, Thyrocare is going to be trading bonus 1:1, and Patel Engineering is going to be mulling a rights issue. So maybe a couple of key things to watch out for, but the macros would be in focus on account of the GDP data, which would be top of mind. Reaction will come in on Monday.
Oh, absolutely. The macro data, the all-important GDP print, and that will be the precursor to the RBI policy next week as well. Ekta, thank you for that update. Upasna now joins in to list out some of the other stocks that should be on your radar today. Upasna, good morning. What's on your list?
Good morning, Hormas. First up, let me start with GAIL. Now, PNGRB has issued transmission tariff revision order, and the new tariff is set at 66.7 MMBTU, implying an increase of 12%, while the street was working with an increase of 20%. So it is lower than what the street was estimating. Next up is Wipro. It announces partnership with Netherlands-based company, that is Odido, for AI-enabled end-to-end IT modernization. Next up is Adani Enterprises. The company has signed a shareholder agreement with Flight Simulation Solutions and Flight Simulation Technique Private Limited to acquire 73% stake at an enterprise value of 820 crore. Next up is Ashoka Buildcoin. The company is temporarily suspended from participating in any ongoing or future NHAI bids for a month and gets a show cause notice for construction of 6-lane corridor in Kerala. Next up is Voltam Transformers. The company has received order worth 85 crore from Gujarat Energy Transmission Corporation Limited. This is for the supply of power transformers. Zydus Life also in focus as the company gets tentative approval from US FDA for empagliflozin and linagliptin tablets. This is mainly used for glycemic control in adults. Emcure also in focus as Mumbai GST department conducts inspection from 24th to 26th of November. Now, lastly, let us look at some of the important block deals that happened yesterday. Cartrade Tech in focus as Goldman Sachs has sold nearly about 10 lakh worth shares. And MTAR Tech also in focus as promoter has sold 2.4 lakh shares in the company. So all in all, we'll be watching out for all these stocks in today's trading session.
Basna, thanks a lot for that update. And lastly, Sudarshan joins in with views from the FNO space. Sudarshan, good morning. The record highs and then we cooled off from those levels. But what is the FNO data indicating on the last day of this week?
Good morning, Harma. So we have waited for so long that market will hit record high, but it didn't feel like that we hit record high because by the close, market turned flat from 26,300. Again, Nifty closed just above 26,200. But good part is that it has held on to levels above 26,000. And also, if you look at the options data, major action was seen in the range of 26,200 to 26,600. And now, take a look at the futures side. In the index futures, we continue to see FIs be on the buy side. Yesterday also, they have bought more than rupees 700 crore and they've added more long positions. They have added almost 2,000 long positions and have reduced short positions of almost 1,500 contracts. Now, their longs exposure has increased to 19% versus previous day's level of 17%. And on the short side, short positions have reduced to 81%. Now, take a look at the options data. On the call side, 26,300. 26,400 and 26,600. These three call options were the most healthy ones, but premium has seen a fall for all these options. On the put side, 26,100 and 26,000 have seen a reduction in the open interest, but again, there also premium has seen a fall, while 26,250 put options has seen a maximum increase in the open interest, and their increase was almost 13 lakh shares. So now, first support for Nifty has moved higher from yesterday's level. Now, first support is around 26,100. Resistance would be 26,300. Next resistance would be 26,500. For Nifty Bank, again, just support 59,000. Some of the stocks that might be in focus after several days, Indian Bank has seen fresh shorts. Delivery has seen short covering, as well as PV Fintech has seen short covering, and LTI Mindtree also amongst the IT packs has seen fresh longs.
Interesting list of stocks there, Sudarshan. Thank you for that update. On to the big macro event of this evening. The second quarter GDP data today may turn out to be as eye-popping as the first quarter. The CNBC TV 18 poll sees the figure at 7.4% compared to 7.8% in Q1. Most economists have already raised their full-year GDP growth forecast to above 7%. Lata is joining in with more on this. Looks like a good show today, Lata.
One reason why it's good is look at the year ago number, 5.6%. That was a terrible second quarter we had. So it's perhaps easy to look good because of that. And it's a tad lower than the 7.8%, which was a genuinely eye-popping number which we got for Q1. However, this is real GDP is what we are talking about. That is, we are taking away the price effect. We're only looking at the rise in goods and services. If you add the price effect, what you call nominal GDP, that's growing at only 8% versus 8.3 year ago and versus 8.8 in Q1 and versus a union budget assumption of 10.8%. So clearly there are going to be problems because of that. The growth at the moment, let us look at the good news. The real GDP growing by 7.4 is going to be helped by all sectors. That is agri, manufacturing and services. Agriculture is seen growing at 3.5, which is very good for agriculture. You know, there are limits. You can't expect it to grow at 8%. Manufacturing, very good, expected to grow at 8.9%, partly because of the front loading of exports and a very good capex spend by the government. Both those helped manufacturing, and services also doing very well at 8.1%. Largely finance, real estate, trade, all of them did well. The poll for Q3 and Q4 are also in, but they're preliminary numbers. Q3 is expected to grow, that is the current quarter, at 6.7%, and Q4 at 6.3%. For one thing, they also have a high base, especially Q4. But most of the economists said these are subject to change after we look at the Q2 numbers. Overall, if you average it out, the full year number comes now at 7.02, which is very good. Because if you remember the CEA, when he presented the economic survey before the budget, he said he expected 6.3 to 6.8. The most optimistic number was 6.8, but now economists are saying it can be above 7%. Again, nominal GDP is the worry. It is going to grow by 8%, according to our poll. You know, nominal GDP is important because that is what gets counted in the budget. That is what gets counted in earnings forecasts of companies. You don't take out the price effect. You just take the profit. Now, that if it is overall is growing only at 8%, you have a problem. There could be an earnings growth problem if nominal GDP is that low.
Lata, thank you for that explainer there. All eyes on 4 p.m. this evening when the GDP numbers are released. To take a short break. On the other side, we get you all the updates from the White House in our special segment, Trump Watch. Welcome back, and on to our special segment, Trump Watch. Winnie is joining in with all the latest updates. Winnie.
Hi, Hormaz. Good morning. And talking about the updates that's coming from President Trump. Now, President Trump states that the U.S. may completely eliminate income tax fueled by the surging tariff revenues, now hitting tens of billions monthly. October alone saw over $34 billion collected, positioning tariffs as a potential full replacement for income taxes. Listen to what he had to say more.
As an example, Japan, $650 billion, South Korea, $350 billion, European Union, $950 billion, and they are building plants now in the United States because they don't want to pay tariffs. So this is one of the biggest things economically that's never happened. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And over the next couple of years, I think we'll substantially be cutting, and maybe cutting out completely, but we'll be cutting income tax. Could be almost completely cutting it because the money we're taking in is going to be so large.
Now, further, more and more updates from President Trump. He's also demanded for the re-examination of all Afghans admitted under Biden following a National Guard shooting labeled an act of terror. He called for halting new processing until security vetting was complete. Additionally, multiple reports also suggest that Trump administration has said that it will re-examine green cards issued to individuals who immigrated to the United States from 19 countries of concern. The announcement comes in especially in the wake of an Afghan national who allegedly shot 2 National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, and one of them now succumbed to the injuries. Meanwhile, getting some updates in the Russia-Ukraine deal, peace deal that's going on. Vladimir Putin welcomes the Trump's administration's engagement of Ukraine peace, but warns that Russia is ready for prolonged fighting if needed. He urges Kyiv to accept the U.S. plan over futile military hopes. Listen in.
We discussed it with U.S. negotiators before my visit to Alaska. Afterwards, the 28-point list was formed. As I've already said publicly, it was given to us through certain channels. We studied this document, Following that, the U.S.-Ukraine negotiations took place in Geneva. As I understand, they decided that all 28 points should be grouped into 4 separate components. We received all this. In general, we agree that it can be used as a basis for future agreements, but it will be impolite on my part to speak about any final versions, because there are none.
And meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky says that at the end of the week, his team, along with American representation, will continue to translate the points secured in Geneva into a form that puts them on the path of peace and security guaranteed over there. He further added that they were doing everything that's possible to ensure that Ukraine had sufficient defense support. Now, that's all we have for today on Trump Watch. We'll be back with more next week as well on Monday.
Vinny, thank you for that update. Of course, the Russia-Ukraine talks will remain the big trigger over the weekend and going into next week as well. Keep a watch out on the oil prices as well. Consequent to that, take a short break. Speaking of oil prices, commodity cues on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. All eyes on the all-important OPEC meeting over the weekend, I guess.
It absolutely is, yes. And you know what the street is anticipating is that the OPEC Plus will continue to increase production, as has already been agreed for the first quarter of 2026. Well, they already have said that it's going to be a pause. But more importantly, the OPEC Plus meeting on Sunday will review the long-term members' capacity. So any statement coming in from that is something that will move the prices here. In the meanwhile, you also have Russia's president saying that the U.S. peace proposal with Ukraine could lead to future agreements, and the meeting coming forward, going ahead, is going to be quite bearish going in for the crude oil prices. We already are headed for a fourth monthly decline for the crude prices. We are down by 19% now for this year when it comes to crude. But everything else really in sense of metal seems to be doing quite well. You have gold prices not too far away from all-time highs. Silver actually is less than $1 from its all-time highs. So good comeback in case of precious metal prices. This is with an 85% probability of a rate cut coming in for the month of December. The gains also are back for metals. You have tin trading at a 3-year high, copper trading at a 2-week high, zinc prices not too far away from its 5-month highs. So good going in metals.
Good going in metals indeed. Manisha, thank you for that update. Now, the death toll in the most deadliest fire in Hong Kong that the city has witnessed in nearly 80 years has now climbed to 94, with hundreds still missing. The Hong Kong police have arrested 2 directors and an engineering consultant of a firm contracted to perform maintenance on the buildings on suspicion of manslaughter for using unsafe materials. The firefighters have mostly contained the blaze, which was raging for more than 24 hours. Take a look at this report.
Firefighters searched through apartments in the Wong Fuk Court housing complex in Hong Kong on Thursday, after the city's worst fire in nearly 80 years. Dozens are dead and scores remain missing after a fire ripped through the tightly packed high-rise community, which had been under renovation. Police arrested 2 directors and an engineering consultant of a firm contracted to perform maintenance on the buildings on suspicion of manslaughter for using unsafe materials. The company, Prestige Construction, did not answer repeated requests for comment. Police seized documents, a list of employees, as well as computers in a raid on the company's office, the government said. Hong Kong Police Superintendent Eileen Chung.
We have reason to believe that the company's responsible parties were grossly negligent, which led to this accident and caused the fire to spread uncontrollably, resulting in major casualties.
Video from the scene on Wednesday shows the fire spreading rapidly up the buildings, which were wrapped in bamboo scaffolding and green mesh. Bamboo has been the material choice for scaffolding in Hong Kong for decades, though it has largely been phased out in mainland China. In March, the government said 50% of new public works contracts would be required to use metal scaffolding going forward. Outside the complex on Thursday, residents watched the smoldering remains of their homes, with many still searching for loved ones. The firemen could have put out the smaller fire on our block and saved everyone inside first, this resident said. My block is still on fire now. My daughter and my husband are still not out. The husband of my neighbor has already died. At a community center, families lined up to undergo the painful process of identifying their loved ones. The complex had 2,000 apartments and was home to more than 4,600 people.
And back to national updates then. Air quality in Mumbai has hit hazardous levels with the city recording an AQI of 270. The BMC has issued stop work notices to over 60 construction sites in Mumbai for violating the guidelines for air pollution control and warned construction project owners of strict action for not adhering to the guidelines. And as we wrap on this edition of Power Breakfast, we leave you with some visuals of Prime Minister Modi meeting the blind women's cricket team that won the T20 World Cup after defeating Nepal by 7 wickets in the final in Colombo. The team gifted the Prime Minister an autographed bat. With that, we take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side.